All right, good evening. We'll start this meeting for the July 6th, 2022. It's 6:02. I'd like to start with public comments for items not on the agenda for discussion of action. All right, having none, moving on to the town administrator report.
Hi, everybody. So a few things. First of all, welcome to our first meeting of fiscal year 23. Whole new budget to work with. The first thing that I'll mention is Bo and I had briefly talked about, and this has been a discussion that has taken place over the last couple of meetings about what to post to the agenda, the detail that we need to go in, whether making recommended motions is beneficial or not. So I touched base with legal about it. And they said that based on what we put on the agendas, legally and according to state statutes and requirements, we're posting more than what we need to, and we're doing a good job with that. The biggest priority is you really need to post when, where, and what time those meetings are going to be taking place. Us doing some last minute motions, if that ever falls into place or that ever happens, the recommendation was it was good to do similar to what I did in the last TA report where I said recommended motion, but it's not necessarily an agenda item. The most important thing about making motions and to keep in mind is really the minutes that take place after the fact. It needs to be properly recorded and it needs to be properly written. And so I think that going forward, after talking to Bo, we'll try to put in what we can on the agenda the way we've been doing. If there's a last minute recommended motion by TA, we'll do that. But then Chris does a really good job with the minutes, and we'll just keeping making sure that we still continue to do that way. So that was kind of the update on that. Do you have anything to add to that?
No.
All right. The next thing I have is
Question?
sure.
But we will still attempt to have anything we're going to vote on, especially if it's like a big critical thing, to have that posted up front.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's typically by Friday
Yeah.
is when the 3 days notice before.
We're required, and it's funny because legal said that they're really the requirements. You can read them in whichever way you want. The practice has been we post the agenda 3 business days before the meeting, which is why we do our postings on Fridays. What we have tried doing, and it worked really well this time around, is we try to have the agenda typed up and ready for Wednesday before the meeting, so then we can gather the packet and put anything in it. So then you, as the board, and the packets online can go there in a timely fashion. And so that's kind of the practice that I'd like to try to keep up with. Have if anybody wants anything on the agenda, have the Wednesday before the meeting, if those items be brought to our attention, we put them on the agenda, and if it's, Friday or Saturday before the meeting, then, an agenda item can wait, it'll go, but if it's a last minute thing, like, Cumberland County, contract signing that is already budgeted, just need a signature and you need my approval, then that could be a last minute thing, so. So Hook Road or Indian Island area, the road does remain closed to traffic, local traffic only, which means the owners down there. In order for the people to park in front of the driveway for the Ballard family to get down to their house, people have been leaving cars in front of the driveway and leaving bikes there, not realizing that people need to get to that house a little farther down. What we did is determine what the width of the road was, realized that where the parallel parking on top of the road is actually on private property. I worked with Phyllis Bruner of Indian Island to make sure that the property owners are okay with that and everybody in the area is comfortable with that. So we've moved 4 parallel parking spots up to the top of the road. If you haven't noticed, there are an overload of cones up there this weekend to just try to prevent people from parking in front of the driveway. Indian Island is purchasing a sign, 2 posts that have already been delivered to Public Works with a chain. And you'll see in your packet, there were some drawings to kind of demonstrate what that's going to look like. That's going to be placed by our Public Works Department to demonstrate the closure of the road and to hopefully let people know that no parking should take place in front of that. We did purchase a bike rack that will go near that area as well. And so for the time being, with whatever the discussion is going to be or whatever will take place, at least this way there is a visual and hopefully better sense of direction for where people can park for those that want to enjoy down at the hub. Any questions?
Where'd the money for the bike rack?
I took it out of, it was like $139 bike rack, and I think it was like Public Works, it was a Public Works department that I took it out of. I looked to see where we took items like that out in the past, and I took it out of that. Because if it gets moved at any point, we can bring it down to some pier, we can bring it down to Chandler's or something like that, so.
Deke, I realize that there may be some bigger discussions that hopefully take place with the neighborhood and the affected property owner. But were you able to determine if that was Cottage Road where people are parking or North Road?
It's North Road.
So, having said that, you know the width of the road?
21 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and that's why I had to determine where North Road ended, where Cottage Road started. Cottage Road is narrower than North Road. Even after all that, the width that we really, I mean, the width that we have and with the curve of the roads to really put the parallel parking on the paved would just provide more danger than anything. And so in talking with Indian Island, Phyllis was really helpful in making sure that the property owner, so where you see kind of the gravel area, that lands on private property, which is an Indian Island property. And so those property owners are okay that, you know, as long as we're not blocking our driveway, but those, you know, those conversations will continue happening in the future. This was kind of knowing that the 4th of July is a busy time and to prevent from people parking on both sides of the road and up and down the hill, that was kind of.
Thanks.
Any more questions?
Broadband is the next update, and I'm actually going to let Michael Porter's here from the committee give him a little overview. And what I did is he typed me up kind of a memo just for our records, and I shared that with you today that I got. But Connect Maine reached out with the paperwork that needed to be signed, just like similar to with the Shore Harbor grant. To sign and start the process, and then the broadband committee is also working at acquiring the full attachment license. There is more detail in the memo that I shared with you that Michael shared about a little bit about the background, the grant, and kind of what the next few steps are going to be for the project. But if you're okay with it, I'll probably let him go through the run through because he knows the lingo pretty well at this point. It might make more sense than I am. No, I didn't go for it. They're
So,
Okay, I guess basically there are 3 things going on with us now.
I just request to get a little closer because I don't see it there. All right.
Okay. There are three grants right now. There's the grant, which just started. We filed a notice, what's called a notice of commencement. And that simultaneously is a request for more. As it says there, we can ask for up to a quarter of the grant at first, in the beginning, immediately. And later on, we can ask for up to another half of it. The last quarter we get at the end after it's all done. Which may make a problem with it. I don't know when that, because they filed all the paperwork for that, when we get that. I don't know, but I think it's. There's the whole make ready question, which is getting poles ready for our tables. There's not a lot to do on that. If you could drive around the main roads, you can see there's plenty of room under the cables that are there for another layer of fiber cables. I don't know about the roads down the woods. And we'll probably have to replace some of those poles, but there's money in that budget for that. So that's the substantive thing that's happening. Is make right. We applied for a pole license from the PUC. Once we get back, we can go to the consolidated and CAP and ask apply for pole licenses there. We have to have a license for every pole. We have 768 poles, and they charge. PUC is at least free. They want to keep track of loose traffic. I assume we'll get that. The comment period ends on Friday, well, it ends on the 8th of Friday. And after that, whenever they decide on this, the next occasion they have to decide this sort of stuff, we should get that license. Then there's the bond coming up. Approved, but the committee hasn't officially decided the amount, but I think with a high degree of probability, say it's going to be $855,000. And that includes the money if we end up having to pay consolidated or exorbitant fees for make ready to do that. If we don't, we'll be borrowing too much. But actually, it's going to pay for it anyway. So we just have some extra money. And the review, the design review has started. I sent the details to Mission Broadband to be hired to do that. They said they would have questions, but their boss is on vacation this is for the design review. So I expect that to go on next week. And that's about what I know. Questions? Any questions? Mark.
So you said in that 855,000 is included a contingency, not a contingency, but a pad in case we get charged by consolidated or CMP? Is that what you said?
That's right.
And if that money is left and we don't have to pay it out along with Axiom, but we borrowed it, then what happens to that money?
It sits in a reserve and Axiom still keeps on paying the debt service. And it's a fund for upgrading and contingency.
So the only thing, because bonds have to be for specific usage.
Yeah.
And so it could only be used for something to do with that project.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the bond can't be prepaid, at least.
Yeah.
Maybe we could make arrangements for it, but that's
Yeah,
not.
no, they can't be paid down early either. And then usually the first year of a bond payment is interest only, and then it kicks in with principal.
Yeah.
So when it kicks in with the principal, the Axiom will be paying the principal payment to the town of Schwig, who will be paying the bond back. Is that accurate?
That's right, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that won't happen until after systems operations.
Yeah.
Because to the fall. It was a
The
little dicey.
borrowing for this particular grant, with the way that everything is lined up, now that it was approved at town meeting, with the way the money is lining up, there's 2 times a year where you can go out and borrow, and the deadline for that is going to be the beginning of August. And so a couple of months ago, I had been in communications with the bond bank, just reaching out to them and asking general questions about the process and making sure that they knew that I needed to be the person of contact and kind of just learning about it. And I touched base with them and told them about the potential, dredging or broadband or a couple other things that were in the works of happening. And the application will need to be submitted by the beginning of August, because we recently put in for the fire truck, our application status is still new enough that they can just upload a lot of our information, so the process won't be as intense as it otherwise would. And so after you heard about this update and knew where this stood, I was gonna work with Michael or contact them and then start the application process, and then reach out to the board if there is any help that is needed from them.
Sounds good. I did have one more quick question, if I may. How did we ever make out with, in your opinion, or the committee's opinion, with regard to insurance on the new infrastructure?
Okay, insurance on the infrastructure, Action's going to be Action for.
Okay,
They're responsible for maintaining on their level. And
even though we own it? Okay,
and we will have to get liability insurance as one of the conditions of getting the pole attachment licenses. And I don't know how our present liability insurance stands, what the limits are relative to what the companies require. But it sounds as though we're going to have to get an umbrella liability added to our insurance.
okay.
But it's not going to be like going out to even policy as far as I can see.
But it will be insured in case of damage.
Oh, that's Action. That's Action. This is just liability.
Yeah.
Which makes no sense. It's harassment, right? Because it's not going to be us climbing the poles. It's going to be
Yeah.
Action's contractors, right? We're not going to be anywhere near those poles, but still.
Thank you.
Fair.
Yeah, so what's the term of the bond?
How many years?
Years, and so I understand correctly, we hold the bond, but sort of access pays us,
Yeah.
pay the bond.
Yes, yes.
And do you have any sense of the 855, what the swap might be in terms of, what's the minimum amount that we're gonna have to spend? Do you have any sense?
In the budget, there's 325 about for make ready costs that as a municipality, we're not supposed to have to pay. If consolidated challenges the law, it'll be a question for us whether we wait to see what happens there or go ahead, pay them, hoping it's like that.
So when you say the municipality is not supposed to pay, is that a new condition?
It's a state law. It just recently passed because the state is very interested in getting broadband out to everybody.
Yep.
And the reason for it, the basis is that utilities are putting poles in the town right away. Okay. And it used to be, the old law was that towns could have emergency wire on these poles for their fire alarms and whatever else, police boxes and such. Now they don't have to do that so much because that was the internet. So it kind of, nobody paid any attention. But somebody, as part of this business of getting broadband to everybody, picked up on that and said, right, well, we shouldn't have to pay for broadband cables on these poles, if it's municipally owned. And if it's for an area that is completely unserved by broadband. And that's us.
So if all goes well, we could have a $300,000 surplus.
Yes.
And then has the change in interest rates affected the feasibility of this much?
Not the feasibility, I think. It's going to affect Action's pocketbook.
Oh,
Yes. But there's room enough in in their business plan to absorb it.
What rate did they initially
I-
estimate?
I couldn't do that.
Yeah,
I did get estimates, you can get estimates, from the site, and the payment has gone up, the debt service has gone up on the order of $10,000. Probably not that much, is that, but some about that.
so that's Axiom Massachusetts.
Yeah, that's actually the problem.
Okay, thanks.
All right, any more questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. At any time, I have questions, you know where I live.
All right.
All right, the next thing I have on the report is, it's an email that I received from Gennaro about signing an application to request a surplus vessel if one becomes available through the state. I talked to him about it and asked him to either be here today or write up a memo with more detail. I did look at the website and look at the letter, but I did not feel comfortable signing anything without your approval or suggestion to pursue this. But basically, it seems like it's a state of Maine surplus property where if they acquire properties, they will get put on a wait list, and that's that. But any additional details I do not know about. So I guess my question to you is this something you want me to pursue and get more information about, or to sign up for, or ask Gennaro to give you more information about? Where do you want me to take this?
Any comments?
At first glance, I'm not overly excited about it. I'm not sure if we know what we're doing in that area quite yet. I think we agreed that maybe we needed to have some more discussion about at least part of that division. I'm also not overly excited about used boats. We decided not to even get a used engine for the boat we have. It's probably a solid decision in retrospect, so I'm not overly excited about it at this point myself.
Do you have any reason to believe that we would not be able to sign up for this donor-donee relationship later?
Honestly, I went on the website and read the information that I shared with you. Like I said, I asked Gennaro to come here because he has been in communication with somebody who provided him this recommendation and more information, but I just didn't have more time to dwell in it if I didn't know if there was,
So the information in the packet does not say anything about a deadline for applying.
It doesn't appear so, but he just sent me an email with the attachment saying, can you sign this? And with the discussions that have taken place the last couple of months, I was not gonna put my signature on something without me knowing about it. So, and I don't know more
Continuing question,
details.
have we scheduled the review that we've talked about of the function? And if not, we need a motion to do that, or?
Of the review for functionality of the
Harbor
position as a
master.
whole.
Harbor master, shellfish, including but not limited to equipment. We've talked about talking about that, but we haven't scheduled.
We have not.
We have not. We were waiting, in my perspective at least, and you could speak for yourself, until we went through the budget process and into the new budget season, to start that discussion closer to the fall before the next budget season started. Which, a couple more meetings and we'll be in the fall, so.
Well, I'd make a motion, again, that we schedule a discussion, whether it's a public workshop or a committee workshop with coastal waters and shellfish. Get their insight. Whether that's the entire board or the board, I don't know if we're able to do that, but that's probably the weakest motion you get all year.
Honestly, honestly,
I don't think
needs
it
to be
requires a
a
motion,
motion.
just kind of.
Request. And then, do you have a? What's the plan?
Before the 13th of July. Setting it up. No, I think it'd be appropriate to start the conversation with coastal waters and target sometime in August or September, that conversation, depending on what their availability is. Was that something you reached out to them or?
I can. I've had some conversation with some of the members on one or some of those committees, so they're aware of these discussions taking place. I think they've just been kind of waiting to see what the process is, so,
Should we have Gennaro here also?
yes.
I would suggest we get through the summer and September, October, have those discussions and have the committees be ready with anything they're gonna send beforehand or bring to the meeting as far as strong suggestions or recommendations or memos or anything.
Yeah, I think that at this point, with us trailing off from the original topic, the first thing that needs to happen is I think those committees need to look at the job descriptions and come with the selectmen board with a recommendation about what their suggestions are, and then maybe schedule a workshop or a meeting with selectmen, so.
So back to the original question about
Vessel
the
surplus.
vessel. During this one, Jen?
I don't think it's appropriate for us to look into that just yet, especially where we are discussing what the future jobs for that position will entail. And my first thought when you sent us was, you get what you pay for. It's kind of a complete and total crapshoot, whether you might get a really nice boat or, just nothing but a headache, which I don't think the town needs another one of those. We got plenty of those.
So do you want a consensus or vote? Or what would you like?
You can make a motion if you want. I mean, from where I'm sitting, it appears that I don't need to pursue anything at this point with this, so I'm not signing anything and signing up. I don't think there really needs to be a solid motion
We all
for
agree.
that unless you feel like that. Okay, there we are.
All in agreement, not pursue.
The one thing that I do have, that is not under the TA report, and I did receive a couple communications. One was, from Jackie Trask, which, is in relation to something that is going to be on this agenda about Chandler's. And then the other was a communication that was received from Donna Damon. And she wanted to make sure that, you all got it, so I'll just read it, and then I think that will cover it. So it said, dear fellow bidders, thank you so much for the flowers and the great gift back that you gave me at the town meeting. I appreciated the kind words even more. While we didn't always agree on every issue, I believe on the whole, we modeled how to agree to disagree in a positive way. I also feel that the board inherited members of the community who had concerns with respect. This is important. I wish you all the best as you continue to do the work of the town. Thank you again for everything, fondly Donna. And then she says, yes, at some point, I'm sure you'll see me again during public comments. And that's all I have. Oh, and I chose not to do a treasurer's report. Tim has been working really hard at getting the reconciliations done. He did a good job. Marjorie came today. They whipped through that information just to make sure with the end of the year with everything, there were some tweaks that needed to be done. And so the next meeting you'll have through the end of June and for the remainder of the fiscal year 22, all of the bank reconciliations. So you'll have May and June. No, I sent them information for fiscal year 2021. And they gathered what they need and they said that it was a good start. And so I'm just waiting for them to do what they need to do with that and then reach out to me and try to schedule something. So.
Any more questions for the town administrator? Karen?
Yeah, I think you might remember when we looked at the report last time, the stone pier doesn't show up on the capital fund. And if you could just add that back in and also kind of give us a status of what's been spent there. Because I didn't see any information on the last budget report on the stone pier expenditure.
Yeah, the trio information, that will be on it. Good. I'll make sure.
Jen?
Just with, back to Public Works. I was wondering about the lobster traps. Are we still accepting lobster traps? And how does that work? And are they crushing them when they go into the dumpsters or?
So with the lobster traps, when people heard that effective July 1st, there was going to be a higher charge, they really started coming in very in abundance. And some people were actually prior to July 1st were paying for the July 1st rate, but they didn't want to take anything or give anything less than that. And so what we had done is I had talked to Vinyl Plant and asked them when they had one available to provide an extra dumpster for us. And so what Public Works has been doing is they have filled up 2 dumpsters of the lobster traps, and they crush them down, and then they fill it up. And then when it's available and able, they will crush down other dumpsters before they leave and put more in it. And so at this rate, as Lionel has an available dumpster, they'll just drop them off and they'll keep doing that until we get rid of that. Because the goal is I want that whole pile to just be gone. It's just, they made a good dent in it. A lot more came in, but it doesn't look like it's working, but we've gotten rid of quite a few traps with that process.
I know that last year we ran into just, having to close because they're all full, and how's the scheduling? Is that any better? Are we still anticipating that it's gonna be late this year?
With the way that the transfer station has been working this year, it's been just like with past years, it's been really hard to predict when it's going to fill up. So there was a couple of weeks ago that came on Thursday, it was empty by Saturday, they were full, and there was no prediction who was going to come and drop what off. And so in speaking to them, I had told Gail this, but then I also spoke to the Lionel, and I said, every week until things slow down, just plan on, just squeeze us in your, because what people don't understand is, but we can do everything we can to coordinate, but the barging company is still one barging company, is still trying to schedule all of us within that. And so what I asked them is, schedule us every week as you can, and just have those barges come and rotate those dumpsters, and then when the trash, when people start leaving, and we see some decrease, then we can cut back on that. And then I haven't had a full conversation with them yet about it. I did briefly mention it, but I was also going to suggest to them that if it was convenient for them to maneuver it, to provide us with an additional C&D for the summer and put it wherever it's convenient for them, as long as they can get their trucks around, just so then we have another one. To try to provide more space, which it might provide a little bit more of a cluster down there, but we got to give and take at this point, and I think people might be okay with waiting a little bit to get in versus getting in and be turned around because there's no space. So that's kind of where we stand with the transfer station.
Any more questions? So we'll move on to regular business, 22-063, to set one meeting a month for July and August.
So this is July, the same.
Yeah,
So you're just looking for, I mean, why don't we just do the first week of August like we usually do?
I'd be okay with that if the town, you know, do it as far as paperwork wise and stuff. The only thing that would be probably warrants. Yeah,
But we can always come in if we have to upon request, correct?
We, since COVID hit, we haven't had the warrants on an agenda like they used to in the past, and I was told that it's not even a requirement thing that needs to be on. So we haven't done that. I was hoping to get back to the routine of doing that, but still hasn't happened, but I do have a signature that I still need on there, so I brought them with me. No, I'm comfortable. We do have, you know, the 20th is a Indian Island workshop, so that's the second meeting in July. And if we do one August 3rd and then one in September, I'd be okay with that.
What would be the date of the one in September?
It would be the first Wednesday.
So,
And if I may, we can always schedule another meeting at one of those meetings if necessary.
Yeah, I think once September hits, we kind of need to, because then we start talking about budget.
Yeah.
We start.
Well, and I think realistically, you're at this point going to be missing a regular board meeting in July 20th and turn it into a workshop. And then just missing the second meeting in August, and that's it.
Because this workshop on the 20th, there's no decisions that are made, there's no motions. It's just a basic discussion. All right, everybody fine with that? All right. Move on, next agenda item 22-064 to determine the charge for the transfer station committee. So we didn't put anything in the packet, it was just basically need to brainstorm what we want them to do, essentially.
I looked back on the charge from, so the transfer station committee that has been working the last 6 to 8 months, however long it's been. Bo, myself, Gail was on it, Annie Baxter was on it, and Donna Damon was on it. And then we did in communication talk to, you know, any of the commercial users, public works. So we brought some people into the discussion at one point. The charge of that back last winter was to look at the ordinance and fees and make any recommendations, which fees are now different fees, and the ordinance has been changed at town meeting. So this is kind of starting clear slate with a new charge and whatever, you know, but however you want to lead it.
So there, they have a recommendation besides. Mark?
I don't have a specific charge language, but in my opinion, I think that group or a group of similar makeup should consider taking a bit of a more holistic look at the entire facility as far as traffic flow, capacity, function, and future needs of expansion. More of a super plan almost. I hate to load up on it, but I think we're probably there with that system.
I think we're all thinking about the same, basically the same thing. So, I mean, I think being, can word something out and then just
I think you just said the charge for our committee right there.
Yeah.
I think,
But I think we
maybe,
need more description.
well, and that's what maybe we can work, between now and the first meeting, or the meeting in August, and come up with a charge and kind of description what over the next year, or between now and the next budget season, what the committee would be, and whether you want to advertise, 2 or 3 members of the public to come join, and then kind of can bring that to you, and then you can make a decision whether you like it, and then, go from there. And then that way it gives the board, or it gives, from September until January or so to try to come up with some ideas
Yeah.
before the next budget year.
Are we looking for 5, minimum 5 members?
Well, just my opinion, if I may.
Yeah.
I thought the makeup from the board and the town staff side was very logical. I think a couple of members at least advertise possibly for the public to consider joining in is probably well worth it. There are some people out there with some solid waste passion, I believe, and,
Yeah.
Was, so you had 2 board members, you and Doug,
Yes.
do you need another board member?
Yeah, potentially if we, change the charge and then, I think it was just one and then I wanted to work on it. Just happened.
maybe a couple of board members make some.
Right, Michael?
I have one comment because some of the committees I've been on, first thing it's gonna want to do is get some dog.
It's one dog.
How much? How much? What are we? Yeah, who's throwing away what?
Yeah.
And maybe that ought to be a piece of the charge. Yes.
One
Yes, Bob.
suggestion I had to add to the charge was to really go hard at comps with other towns. But we can all look at and see, this is the fee structure for this town, this town, this town, this is maintenance, this is island. We look at that data as a group, as a group.
So do you want to charge them?
That,
Okay.
Can I just throw one more comment?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's for this group or this charge, but at some point I would like to take another glance, and maybe you guys did, about the wood chip problem that we have up there at the crush dump. And is there anything that we could look into that other towns may be doing to reuse those wood chips in any way, shape, or form?
that's a good,
Yeah.
12 years longer. There were a few towns in New England that were adapting boilers to run off of wood chips. At that time, they had to be a fairly specific specification of wood chip, and our wood chips were not at that time. The fellow inspectors at that time was also in the business of setting up the boilers. Tried for a while, just because I've heard recently that there's like a round 2 of that going on now, given some increases in biomass technology, biomass burning technology. I think it's a great idea. We've got what we're right now treating as a liability. Maybe there's a way to turn it into an asset.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody from the public? All right, we got enough information.
While we're on the transfer station discussion, I have had some, questions come in, specifically in the last week or 2, about whether we're doing, hazardous waste or bulky waste weekend. We haven't done that in a couple of years. In the ordinance, it says that, we will do it every 2 years. I don't remember the language, but we did the flexibility, so, you know, we can go a year or two without doing it, but it seems like there's a want, and a need from some of the public to try to schedule one or the other, if that's in interest to, you, if that's something you want me to look into and try to figure out what to do.
Carol?
Yeah, I think we haven't done it for a while, and if we don't have a way to dispose of it, end up someplace else. So, yeah, I think in multi-ways too, because I know we have some stuff sitting around, so it's hard to get rid of.
I was thinking, is there a way to not maybe have it done in, you know, August and wait until maybe the fall when it's not so crazy up there?
The reason is it was done in August, it was to catch the summer that are already here. in the Summer.
I think that
So,
with a lot of people do stay past, you know, and stay in September and August. I think that if we hold it then, you'll hit a good degree of.
In the early pandemic, didn't we originally schedule it for like October, but then we didn't do it, right?
yeah. Art?
And I'm sorry, I already don't remember, but when we modified the solid waste ordinance with town meeting approval, did we put in some allowances to now charge for some of this activity of bulky waste?
The language is, and I believe as it was previously, that, the disposal of bulky waste, hazardous waste, will be free unless those that are supposed to, so commercial businesses like lobstermen for the lobster traps. I remember, I would have to look back, but I believe that we didn't have a good fee structure for it, but in there it said commercial fishermen, so it was one of those gray areas, so bulky waste could not be an opportunity for a fisherman to fill up a whole container with traps for free. They're commercial, they're still gonna have to pay. So there is that fine print that will not allow some who already pay.
Yeah, the purpose of my question was, I agree with Carol, I think we probably should consider offering a bulky waste weekend sometime soon. I didn't want to hold it and then have people have to pay for things that they used to be able to bring for free, non-commercial. That was the purpose of my question. Thank you.
So try to set something up in August, beginning of September. Yes.
Do other communities charge for bulky waste? Bulky waste is like old appliances and that sort of thing, am I right?
Mattresses,
Yeah.
appliances,
Beds, things like that.
chairs.
It's typical things that you as an individual would otherwise pay dumping. So if you brought like a couch and you would pay, I think, $12 or whatever the fee is.
I see.
Bulky waste weekend, you could bring that for free.
I see.
You have a question?
Are we scheduling tonight?
So I'm just wondering if you guys want to or no, Karen?
I guess my personal priority would be hazardous waste, at least to have that pick up, because I think that's important for the community. I think bulky waste, people can keep it longer if they have to, so I personally, that would be my priority.
The one thing about hazardous waste is we currently as a facility are not allowing that. It should not be taken in hazardous waste. So it's being collected. People bulky waste, you can still bring it, you're just needed to pay for it. And so, yeah, it was the hazardous waste were a few more questions than the bulky waste, but I think that you're right. If you schedule one over the other, it probably should be hazardous waste. So it, all the people that have been doing their home renovations and painting their houses can come and dispose of that properly.
The only thing I have, the only question I have is, did we budget for this? to do it? That's the only thing, 'cause that's gonna be an extra 6, 7 barge trips, or 8 barge trips, and then
Is it bulky or that is?
so bulky waste and hazardous, well, we got.
I'll look
people
into
that
what
truck
it
over
is, yeah, I'll look to
material.
see what we paid the last time we did it.
Well,
I would, so it seemed to me from listening to what you guys are saying about the direction the transfer station committee was headed, was that we were moving toward charging for waste disposal services more like other towns, Jackson's question. And hold up your arm, they charge. I understand that in the past, we had a bulky waste day where it was free, like a holiday. But I think we should do a hazardous waste day and avoid that unbudgeted cost and keep moving forward with the transfer station committee coming up with their recommendations. And that committee could decide as part of the recommendations whether we regularly schedule a no-charge bulky waste day, or whether we move away from that because of the costs that we've been seeing grow and grow for those times. I would say let's do the hazardous, but not the bulky until we hear back.
was everybody
Good
else?
to me.
All right. So when,
I would, I think before the end of the summer. And I don't know how difficult it is to schedule it, sorry.
I've never scheduled one, but I'll find out.
so let's, aim for the end of August. You know,
And I-
Get everything lined up.
And I think it's important to be really clear about what materials they'll take and what they don't. I mean, in the past, we've sent out a list, because there's some things they won't take.
More advertisement. I was part of the board one year and I didn't even know we were doing it. So-
If I remember correctly, it was like a pretty short window, like 9 to 1.
Yeah.
Right, so it's,
All right. So that. Next item, 22-065, to hear an update on Chandler Beach Stream and take any necessary action. Thank you, Michael.
I think I'll start.
So I wrote a memo about this, to all of you, it was in your packets. Over the last couple of months, it seems like now, Jim Butler and I have been back and forth trying to figure out some research and make some determination on whether the stream is protected, whether driving's allowed on the beaches, and what is required for additional permits down went through DEP, specifically leading to the entrance to Chandler's Beach on the left side, where there's been a request for more handicap accessibility. Few things. One is the stream that has been discussed. When you go down to Chandler's, if you go to the left and you drive down and then you hit the stream, that's always forever changing. That is considered protected under the town's zoning ordinance. So this is a protected stream. No vehicle should be going through that. Yes.
When you say to the left.
To the right, I'm sorry, to the right, yes. Thank you. Chandler's Beach, through the state sand and dune mapping system is protected area. The map that I attached shows you, kind of a red area, which is D1, and a yellow area, which is D2. D1, is an area where they're very, strict, and the boundaries, they're pretty stringent on their rules and regulations. D2, which is in yellow, which is, you can see on the map, sits back a little bit, kind of covers a part of the turnaround area, is more flexible. But D2 is the area where the handicap accessible walkway or ramp or steps, whatever would go in, would be in there. I had spoken to somebody from DEP, as well as, had a conversation, with, Pete Slavinsky. DEP is, the one that we would be going through a permit. As far as, the ramping goes, and that's really a decision that the selectmen, need to make for what you want me to push forward and do, if anything, down there. In talking through these organizations, they said that we could put the, Anna specifically said that, we could put the ramp that I think Mark or somebody on the selectmen brought up a couple months ago. But that might be questionable where the area it is that you have to get a permit every time you remove it and every time you put it in, versus just doing a one-time cost of steps, or, even if it's posts with a rope, something, to get down there. But I need some direction for what we want down there. And then also separately, because of the stream, is protected, what's the direction you want to take that? Are you gonna, or, you know, it's, realistically, you can't have somebody surveillance that area 24/7, but do you want to just leave it be and post a sign there saying protected area, please do not drive on the beach? Do you want to mark it off so you can't drive down there? So that's kind of, the information in a nutshell, and you get to decide what you want to do with all of it.
Mark?
Talked to Jim Butler about this before he submitted this memo, and I wasn't surprised that this was the outcome. So my motion is to direct the town administrator to, or authorize / direct the town administrator to purchase 1 or 2 signs that say no motor vehicles allowed beyond this point, and post it at the bottom of the turnaround down by the protected stream.
Yes, sir.
Get a second before you can, yes, second.
All right. Second, Mark.
I would suggest adding to that we invest in the path that's on the left as you're looking toward the water. Invest in some posts and handrails and steps as needed, if those can be approved by DEP, so that there is access down that left side, but not over the stream. I would propose staying away from the stream altogether, but to take a pathway that gets us from the parking turnaround down to the high tide line, basically. And not a structured pathway, just a few steps in the hill, like the railroad ties that are there now, but better. But with a rail that's either pipes in the ground with a heavy rope, or maybe even pipes in the ground with pipes going along, something that can stay, something that's not going to wash out every storm. That's a long way.
Are you amending his motion?
I'm proposing.
Are you okay with his proposal?
I
Please don't let.
I think they
don't
don't,
have Chris.
I'd like to.
So can I just, can we vote on this motion and then have this discussion? Because this is a simple, I can do this if you vote on it.
Okay.
This, in order for us to do this, we need to have like drawings and a very detailed, well, not a very detailed, but drawings and a specific plan that we submit with a photo showing what we wanted. So that, can we just for
So that was
ease of
going
it,
to be
separate it in
modified.
2 different, thank you.
I withdraw.
So,
All right, so
we
now
can
we're back,
second it, so don't.
No, I withdraw my.
Oh, that, okay.
so now we're back to the original motion. Carol?
Yeah, I think one thing you could do with the sign is to also educate people about, you know, that it's coastal barrier resources, protect, I mean, you don't just have to say no motor vehicles. I think maybe make it both educational and, or informative and.
Well, I think there are generic signs that you can buy that say protected resource area and vehicles beyond this point.
I'm fine with whatever signs you want to buy. as long as one of them says, no driving through here.
Right, and I guess this is a public beach, because there are other places on the island that are protected resources that people are driving vehicles also. And what seems to be happening is these, the four-wheelers are now, on the beaches. And so I don't know if we want to just tackle Chandler's for the moment and think about some of these other ones, and I guess, is coastal access part of coastal waters, purview, or is this a selectmen's thing? So I didn't know, is this something that coastal waters should get involved in? Because, I guess I thought that was part of their charge. I'm not trying to shift responsibility, I'm just curious.
So this was raised, I had spoken to Justin Dowdy, who has taken over coastal waters at this point, where he's, leading it. And a few months back, Donna Damon had presented a coastal access committee and a drive, and suggest that we, or the board approve for that committee and advertise for members. And it was suggested that it should be brought back to coastal waters to see what their interest is. They did provide some interest in taking that project on, but what Justin wanted to do was get a little bit more information about what are the accesses, what do they require, what do they look like, what kind of taking care of have we done to it. The committee that they have, they show up, but they're not, just like many other committees, it's hard to get them to remain active. And so I think that there is the talk about how we keep it moving.
Right, so,
At this point, we're just working on Chandler.
right, so
And
what
then we
I,
will be looking at the other ones.
so what I would suggest is we pursue Chandler with this simple motion and do that, but maybe consider having coastal waters, given that example, have coastal waters explore some of the other ones, maybe over the winter. And I think there's some specific ones that they could look at, not necessarily every single coastal access point, but there's some that are, that are being abused that they should look at.
I did, when I talked to DEP, I raised that question because I expected that it was gonna come up, because there are other beaches that are being driven on. She made it very clear that right now the state is really beginning to get a hold of this, because we're not the only area where this is being experienced. Well, they are protected dune areas. There's nothing within the protection that says that if there is a road leading directly to the beach and you're not physically driving on any of these dunes or on these protected areas, that that's not possible or that can't be done. There's very little information about driving not being allowed on beaches. It would have to be a very specific town ordinance. I looked through all kinds of paperwork that we had and couldn't find anything specific that says, Shabig, you cannot drive on beaches. And so it's that gray area for places like Sandy Point with the road directly onto the beach, but you're not physically driving. Or
So I think we're getting a little.
yeah, and so what the biggest thing about Chandler that distinguishes it is with the street. And that's where I think you can do something about it and say that can be. But with the other ones, there's very little information with the state that the town, unless you make your own ordinance, that down and say, you can't drive down those beaches at this point, at least.
Well, I think maybe,
Go ahead.
I think maybe an education program using Chandler's as an example is a good place to start. So I think that's correct.
I think it's the signage for right now, and I think, is there any other comments?
No, I do agree with Carol's suggestion of having some sort of a sign that explains that it isn't resource protection area.
Are there any comments? Yes.
So I go down to Chandler's at night to fish, and that's where I have seen a lot of traffic on the beach. Fishing, big line
ask a question about concentration of vehicles that you observe? May I ask that question?
As far as the number,
Hmm.
I've seen as many as maybe 3 or 4. Lined up, big lights.
All right, so we have a motion seconded, all in favor? All right, moving on. 22 dash.
Well, no, sorry, back to
Oh,
the
back to
walkway.
Yes, sorry.
Chandler's Beach, the walkway.
Your motion that you proposed.
I'd like to move my motion. Make it a little more- I'd like to move that we come up with a drawing that is simple but functional to allow people to walk from the parking area down to the on the website. That's what's there.
Is there a second?
I will second it with a request for a friendly amendment. I would like to have the proposed improvement of that path include a request to the DEP to soften the grade with maybe some of our wood chips. In other words, right now it goes like this and then flattens out. I'm wondering if we could make it more like this.
Good.
Bob, you mentioned about the railroad ties. I believe Public Works took those out. They're not there. So I agree with not touching the stream per se, because that stream moves constantly and all the time. And I think we'd just be fighting a losing battle completely. But to improve the left side is a very good idea. While we're talking about like coastal waters and what their charge is and all those committees, and we talked about having, putting something out there for a transportation committee. I think this is the time of year when you start to ask for the committees to have new members or need members. And I know for a fact coastal waters is one of those committees that needs some, and probably shellfish, if there's such a thing. So I think it's a good thing to, when you put those out there, to include those 2 committees.
All right, any other questions? Yes.
This is the time for discussion.
Yes.
Regarding the left-hand side, which we're talking about, I agree that the degree of slope needs to be, I guess I would say, lessened. Right now, you know, the steps have been taken out, but over on the far left, there's kind of a gully that has been created by, washing out. And when you talk about this design, that was the motion, I guess. Who's gonna go do that design?
We haven't gone that far yet. So we'll talk to DEP, we'll talk to the code officer and see what kind of details they're requesting for that. If it needs to be engineered or something like that, we'll have to look into that.
Okay. Maybe 3 or 4 months ago when this was first on the agenda, I recommended, and this came out of my personal experience and discussion with Elizabeth Dowdy, I recommended that she be included in the design, in the whatever. And she is willing to, lend her expertise, which I feel is a good idea. When, after my last summer's surgery, I was working with her and we would go on walks and we went down to Jim. It was difficult because of the lack of the handrail and the gully was unsafe. So she has some definite ideas that I hope the town will, take advantage of her input.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board?
I'd like to. Because Jackie's great.
Or withdraw your motion?
Is that possible?
As far as what do you use by that?
What Mark said and what Jackie said, maybe come up with a different idea. Apologize, but,
You should go a little bit more.
sorry, what Mark said and what Jackie said, maybe come up with a slightly different idea. And it goes along with what Carol was talking about, sort of using this as an example. I was going to propose that we actually ask Maine Geologic Survey to help us design an access that is friendly to citizens, but also consistent with best practices for a coastal barrier reef system. And I believe they would come up with something that would use materials like wood chips, like logs, not concrete, not steel. To ask for their help, which I believe would be free, in proposing a design that I believe would then have to go to.
So we receive.
You received the first motion.
Then it would have to be seconded by Mark.
I mean,
I'm questioning, I can't remember.
if it's not something you're charging for with the monetary action that I need to go after, I don't need you to make a motion.
Okay.
I can just contact them and see if they're willing to. What we are going to need, once there is a plan, is a permit by rule, I think is the name of it, to be filled out where it has, because the whole point of this is with these coastal water access, they want as little penetration to those protected areas as possible. And there's accommodations for access, but they said that once we have, those drawings, it's submitted, there's a 2-week dull period where if you don't hear within 2 weeks, then you can start beginning to work. So the process could be fairly quickly, but as you can see, it takes months sometimes to figure out what the process should be. But I can absolutely reach out to them to see if they can help us in the design. I mean, I've already talked to Pete Slavinsky about this specific area, and see if I can get some kind of a drawing in place and then bring it back to you, or.
So my thoughts are, let's start the conversation with them, and then let's move on to this motion. Because they'll be.
Do you, I mean, if it's make it easier and to speed it up, do you want to make a motion to charge me with an ability to spend X amount of dollars to have this plan be done, and then I can bring it to you, or because now if we don't have a meeting in July, we're now looking for the first meeting in August and further progressing it. Are you comfortable with trying to progress this process, that if you make a motion to allow X amount of dollars to be expended for this project and to move forth with it, or do you want to wait until the next meeting to see a drawing?
Do you have an amount in mind? $500, $1,000?
And for where?
It coastal access.
Yes, we have a coastal access, yeah.
I'm personally fine with a reasonable amount of money. I would like any discussions with Maine Geological or whatever, to understand that we would probably like to be able to put something in with at least one, if not two, friendly looking railings for people that have access.
I think with all the discussions that I've had with DEP, I walked down there with Jim Butler. Realistically, I think to accommodate the needs, I think we're gonna need like 2 or 3 step with the railing on either side, because then it, it flattens out, and I think that the rest of it will be good, but just that bump, I think it's gonna need at least, and that's what he suggested is we can do a drawing with, steps with some hand railings and, to show DEP how it's gonna impact the land around it and then, submit it.
All right, so do we want to add, do you want to amend your motion to add an amount? Or do you want to do a separate motion, or do you want to wait for another drawing? So you need in August by the time.
I would like my motion to go forward as is, talking to Pete, asking him for help in designing such a thing or sketching such a thing, and then talk about that. I don't think there's any money involved in that.
All right, Jen?
I agree. I don't think we need to put money with this because even though it's August 3rd. And that's when
We still need a second to that.
I think
Mark,
my second still stands, sorry.
All right, so we got a motion and a second. All in favor? We move on now. All right, 22-066 to discuss goals for the July 2018 Point Road Workshop. Anybody have an idea of what we should be concentrating on? Any ideas on what kind of documentation we need to bring? Drawings, sketches? What would you guys like to have? Carol?
So was there a plan prepared for the previous proposal, right? There was, right?
Yes.
So you could have that and elevation information. And I guess just to answer the overall question, I think we could ask the appoint folks here too, but I think the goal of the meeting for me is to try to understand what their needs are and their desire for access and what the town's, needs are in the context of, regulatory requirements there and sea level rise. I think that's what I think I see as a goal for the project and kind of what mechanism we could use to try to accomplish that. And I don't know, is the land trust going to join us?
I spoke to or emailed back and forth with Chris, and they have another meeting that is lined up. And so in my email to him, the last email I said to him today, I said that I'm happy to touch base with him to see if there's any information I can gather from him that needs to be shared, or if they wanted to connect with Indian Island to see to try to utilize, any or make sure that their input is shared one way or another at the meeting.
Well, that's unfortunate that they can't join us. Have you guys met with them this week? Okay.
So I've spoken with Diane. Said that she would possibly be able to come. It's an interesting relationship. They haven't been very active with us. We own the property. They don't own the property, but they hold us accountable to be stewards. We did meet with them recently because we conducted our own master plan about our other properties. We wanted to talk with them about what the possibilities were as far as the future of our properties. So it wasn't really focused on the book, but we would like to have it here. And whenever these questions come up, which is unfortunate.
For me, I see 3 topics to address at the meeting. There's topic 1 would be the public access to the beach and the bar. Topic 2 would be Indian Island access to their property beyond the public access. Beyond physically, but beyond legally, morally as well. And the third would be adaptation and preservation of the coastal barrier resource system. So those are the 3 goals that I see we're trying to accomplish. And there may be, one of those goals conflicts with another goal, but I think our mission for this meeting is to find at least the beginnings of the best path to achieve those three goals.
Could I have permission to ask these people questions? Are you able to access down through there in any type of vehicle right now?
I walk it, so Ted represents the owners and I represent the neighborhood association, which is about 60 people. And he's got 28 owners. That connection there, but you can drive down through there. But what we have set up with our members and the neighborhood association there is really we don't want people using the road. So it's very, we actually have a waiver that we put in place, Mark II, because of liability reasons. And the only way that they can really get down is that they absolutely have to for getting delivery they need or getting some heavy thing down there. Joe has been using it on a regular basis for family reasons as well. But we'd like to see that curve back some. But you can drive, I just walked it a couple hours ago. There's one section behind the bulkhead that actually, one of the wheel lanes is pretty much gone.
Yeah.
Where the drainage comes down, goes across the road, it's eating
Yeah.
out the big cavern. There's a cone there now, which I think the first department put there, which was great. But it's listening.
But when you get to the area way down low in the actual resource protection area where public access ended, that was washed right completely out at one point.
Right, so what's happened there this spring is where you used to park the 5 cars, you
Yeah.
have to actually swing over, if you drive down now into the parking area, and then you have to drive back over to get into where the public-private interface was. So you're coming down, you're leaving over toward the cove, and then you're going over the dunes
Yeah.
into where the old alignment was, so it's a bit of a meander down through there now. But the road, the fines are gone, the surface, the big cobbles are still there. The holes behind the bulkhead are getting bigger. The bulkhead is disappearing. I've got a sense of urgency. There's not going to be much fun with it. And maybe that's the point. But it's going.
I'm going to take a better look before the meeting. Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, Carol.
Well, and I don't know if we shouldn't all maybe take a look at the meeting.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of feel like the little field trip is maybe not at the same time as the meeting, but it seems like everybody should see it.
We could have an advertised site visit.
Yeah. I think, you know. And I guess we've had offers from various entities to help us work on this project. And it was recommended to me that we may qualify for some funding, you know, through NOAA, through some other federal agencies, sort of on a coastal resiliency kind of approach that could benefit all entities. So, you know, that's another thing I think that we can look at, you know, or discuss at this meeting. Because even though you can't use federal money to construct, you know, hard structures, you can use it to, you know, develop a resiliency plan, to modify access, to create, you know, living shorelines, whatever. So there's, you know, there are things that we can use those monies for. So I think that also may be worth exploring. But I think, I guess I just want to understand what the structure of the meeting is. And is it going to be a facilitated meeting, or are we running it ourselves, or how do we envision that?
At this point, I'm envisioning just running it ourselves. Unless you guys have a different idea. At this point, we're 2 weeks out, so we're trying to find a facilitator.
Can I ask questions or do I have to wait till?
I just wanted to ask the rest of the board to see if they had any other questions or any goals they wanted to see for this workshop. And if they wanted any other kind of documentation. Mark?
Well, getting back to Carol's specific question, I mean, I don't think we've invited anybody else, like, you know, Pete Sludinsky or someone from the state to come help us guide this meeting, so we probably have no choice at this point but to guide it ourselves. I hope that at least some members of my trust try to come. I think that would be helpful. So,
I agree, Mark, it has been disappointing they haven't been to any of these meetings in the past
yeah.
months.
And this may not be the last stab at it.
No, it probably
Yeah.
won't be. I
Yeah.
can't imagine.
I think we can shoot an email to Pete and, to maybe DEP. Those, it doesn't hurt to ask at this point. Any other questions?
No, but I agree with Bob. I think the topics are private access, public access, any sort of natural stabilization goals.
Are there certain documents that you want to see in a packet? Because I was gonna try to come up with a packet of any general information that I have, like with this easement agreement. Just so that way everyone is coming to this meeting with kind of the same information, or is there specific documents that you want to see prior to this meeting that will be helpful to direct you?
So I think the plans, the sort of the current condition plans that Barney Baker put together would be helpful. The sea level rise inundation study that we did back, I think, in 2016, covered Indian Point, and there's a discussion, so we could just take those excerpts out that relate specifically to Indian Point. So that we did simulations for different elevation, different sea level rise scenarios. So it'd be good to look at those. And I think those are the only Indian, and then actually the coastal barrier resource, I can provide you with that, but the sort of the coastal barrier resource language, I don't know if you have that, because if you don't, we can look at that.
And then obviously everyone should be aware of the existing agreement.
Yeah, the existing.
Those type of things.
And I guess is the easement with the land trust just between the Indian Island Corporation and the land trust, or is the town part?
Well, we'd be happy to speak to some of these things, maybe that the answer to that question is bilateral, the two bilateral. One with the land trust, and the other with the town.
So I think these discussions we should have, very important.
Well, if someone was willing to share that agreement between the land trust and the Indian Island Corporation, that might be helpful.
For sure, so that four things that we could share with that, we've shared already. The conservation easement and the road maintenance agreement are both recorded in the county report of deeds. Those are public documents. And if you have, I think you got a copy of the packet.
And, yeah.
That's got the.
Well, no, it's not in this packet, but those are documents that I have that you recently shared that I'm happy to share. I was gonna actually attach that information with the easement stuff, whatever you share with me,
Yeah, no, right.
all the recorded deed stuff.
Observed that the location in the county recorder of deeds of the road maintenance agreement is in the legend of the document that you have in your packet. So we have, in addition to those two documents we provided to the town, we also have a one-page sort of summary that I prepared that has a summary of the terms of the maintenance agreement and a copy of the survey drawing of the site, which was part of a conservation easement. So both those that exists. I distributed that to the board most recently on June 1st. I gave a copy of that one page. Have a copy. And then the last thing that we had thought was we prepared some notes. I prepared some notes following the DP visit in May of 2021 of that discussion, which we shared, and I'm happy to share it again. And then if there's other things that you can think of that we might add, identified some of the pieces that relate to it in the alignment of the road. So if that would be useful.
I think a question I would have in support of what Carol was looking for, how's it going to be executed? What could be of the most help to everybody? We'd be happy to make a presentation with the materials that we have. If that's something that, here's the properties coming down, because it is complicated. The road comes down to a lot of private property and then it gets into Indian Island. The base mapping that Barney did, I thought was really good. So there's some really great elevation information that could sync up with the study that you led, I think, Carol, a while ago. So there's some great data that I think would get everybody to the same place. I mean, in some ways, we feel like we're starting all over again. And the road maintenance agreement is very clear. It's very clear, in my view, of what we have for the obligations here. So I'm feeling a bit of urgency with what's happening with that road as far as bringing it back if we can. So we want to do anything we can to help support the 20th get together and get to some place where we can.
So if you do a presentation, which I think would be quite informal, get everybody on the same page, just like you said.
Yeah.
I'd like to request, maybe like 20 minutes,
Okay. Yeah.
half an
Yeah,
hour,
give it- yeah,
something
20 minutes is
not
fine.
too extreme.
Yeah.
Try to keep the meeting or workshop at a decent time. I'm anticipating some people from the community coming over to talk about it.
It would be great.
So, I'd be greatly appreciated. Carol, you had something else?
Yeah, so if there's other information that you provide to the town, that would be good to see ahead of time, because I haven't had that seeing any of that. And-
Any information could be put into
A
one
packet.
packet just for the workshop, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
And I just have a question, having read the maintenance agreement, that is not a town road, is that right?
Can I ask one question related to that?
Yeah,
Has the town of Shebig, in our opinions, done some light maintenance and drainage to at least the top part of that road as it starts down the slope?
I know a few years back, they've done some, because there was an erosion. I don't know what storm it was, but I know they fixed the top part, gave it a crown. And then just after the Arbuckles, they put in I call them a speed bump, water bar. There you go. Is that the proper term?
Yeah.
Speed bump.
Just to steer the water
To
off.
steer the water off the road.
And I assume that work has to be done by permit by rule.
I don't believe on the upper side.
No, on the upper
because
side,
it's
where
well
the
over
two
2
hills are, does it?
Because of the location of,
Because it's
Okay.
farther than 200.
I just didn't know what had been attempted. Thank you.
Permit by rule is set within 75. Anything above that is just a local permit.
Thank you.
I think there have been years, Mark, where it seems like it happens more frequently, and then I think there's been times where it hasn't occurred, and that has really contributed with the drainage coming down across the roadway at the flat area.
Yeah.
But it is really helpful when the town does the maintenance. We see the difference in the wear and the trenching of the road,
Yeah.
even in the upper section there by Henry's house. But when it doesn't happen, it really does even affect the lower area.
Yeah, I have noticed that. Thanks.
There also is, it's really helpful when you cut the vegetation on the side for visibility and safety. Their public works has come down and done that, and that's a really nice feature as far as safety and walking on the road.
All right. Is there any other goals or any other paperwork that the board would like to see? Also, Indian Island. There's something
Could
there.
I just follow up a little bit on what is it that you would like to have us do? We don't want to make a long presentation. We want to do what you want.
Yeah.
So if you give us, what would you, if you envision it, what would you like to have us do?
as far as for me, any plans, any, pretty much, we just need to get on the same page and get our, you know, what we want, what you guys want.
Yeah, I
We need
think
to
I
be on
heard,
the
what
same
are our
page.
goals, getting from the top of the hill to the boathouse. It's pretty simple.
So that would include some of these things that are descriptive. There's only one that we haven't provided, but we will provide this.
Yeah, I would rather see those things, I think Carol may have said this, in advance as opposed to a presentation at the meeting.
You can
Specifically,
have,
the documents you referred to, and the one from June 1st, which I wasn't part of the board then. But also, I don't know this, but I think Barney had a plan for the town and also a plan for Indian Island.
yes.
I would love to see the plan for Indian Island. I've seen the one for the town. I think I've seen it. And I would love to see the one for Indian Island as well.
Yes, I mean, there aren't separate reports. There's only one Barney Baker set of material. It was designed to be in the first place one engagement. So, although I would make the comment, and maybe you can, I think there's different sets of detail from the different presentations that Barney made. So it's important to figure out what is the most complete set of information that exists and make sure that.
I'm sorry, this is dragging on, and I think we're talking about the same stuff. So any information you can give us as far as Barney Baker's stuff that we don't have would be appreciated. The paperwork that, you know, the mapping you were talking about, your property boundaries and stuff like that, that would be great to have. You can send it via email to
Yes.
Vika, and then she can spread it out to the board. I mean, I don't want to talk about the workshop this long. I didn't think it was going to be a 20-minute discussion about what kind of paperwork we need to talk about. So, and I understand, we want to try to make sure we have all the information we need, and we're not going to, it's always accurate. So, but
We'll make sure that you get a nice package of documentation, which we have been given to you, and then highlight the points. I mean, I'm listening to what everybody's saying, making sure that we address the points that are important to you, and then at the same time express the goals that we.
I really do appreciate the work on this.
You've been on it, it's a long haul.
Yeah.
It's been
Thank
long hours.
Carol?
Yeah, I know it sounds like you want to wrap this up, but I think we need an agenda for that meeting, and I suggest, you know, we put one together, and we can run it by the Island, says to the land trust, since they're not, if they're gonna be here, that would be good to have them in on it too, but I think we need kind of some specific topics that we're gonna discuss, and, you know, kind of some structure to that meeting, because I think it could be very unfocused if we don't. So, and then the final question I have is there a report for the project that Barney presented in April on Indian Island? Because he presented an executive summary more recently, but I have not seen a report.
We have that.
So there's
So
no
we can,
report.
I've been on that.
So is there an expectation of a report?
I talked to him last Wednesday and emailed him and then in person after the Stonework meeting, and he said he was gonna get to me ASAP. And I was gonna email him at the end of this week if I hadn't seen something. Can I just to kind of bring it full circle, and so if we want an agenda, can we do a 20-minute presentation from Indian Island and break it into a public access discussion, Indian Island property discussion, adaptation discussion, and just kind of have that be the topics that you're covering, so you can hear their history or their background. Then you can go through and have a discussion about the easement, whether it needs to be changed, what that process is gonna look like, you know, and just kind of have those be the basic bullet points of the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only thing we need to add for context would be the context of sea level rise and kind of, the conditions that we have now and the conditions that we expect, because it's important to think about this project, not just today. I mean, the whole issue is kind of,
But when that fall under.
Adaptation.
but I think it would be important to cover that sooner rather than later in the discussion, so that people are informed about it. I would put that first. So something to do with sea level rise, then Indian Point could do sort of their presentation and what they've been doing, what their goals are. And then we can move on to those three topics that Bob mentioned.
And then maybe if we do get in touch with Pete Slavisky or whoever from DEP, maybe we can give them a little slot.
Yeah, and if, for example, if Pete's here, he can do the sea level rise thing, because it's very familiar to the map of that beach, he knows the whole works.
That sound all right?
Well, good.
All right. Sound okay to you guys?
It sounds good. There's a lot of good baseline elevation information here also. We'll make sure you have it ahead of time.
All right. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time on tonight, though.
Thank you. All right, moving on, 22-067 to start discussions about how to best seek grant opportunities. I think that was.
So the context in which I made that decision.
That was
I don't
future
remember.
agenda item to discuss how to best
Which was the
seek grant opportunities.
I mean, Mark,
Well, I don't want to get too frank, but that's how I speak, I guess. As we all know, if you're going to go for grants for something, you have to have some sort of a goal and a plan. And you can't just say, we want a grant because we might fix our sand dune system. Or we want a grant because we might fix our stone wharf system. You have to have, so I think we're trying to continue down the painful path of stone wharf. I think we're going to continue that. In some form, we're going to finish it. And then we're going to have a goal of some sort of a final design and a goal of when to look at the actual monies for it and how much we might be able to get for it. One thing that we did look into before the new board members get on here was a specific simple design for upgrading Cousins Island Wharf, possibly with the permission, of course, of the town of Yarmouth, which is a pretty big permission. Which would involve going to the Yarmouth Planning Board with a design and a proposal and so on and so forth. And Don Naaman did actually look into that a little bit about the possibilities if we finish that design. Where would that grant come from? And she found out it would come from actually the Department of Transportation. So without being too long-winded, I think we should identify what we think our goals are for small harbor improvement grants or bigger grants, and what specifically we think would be the best benefit for the community.
Yeah, and I think it's really, I think what Bob might have been getting at too was sort of capacity, and I know, Mika, you worked on the ship and harbor grant, I've done one of those. I mean, it can be hard to put, there's a lot of money out there, but it takes a lot of manpower to put it together. I think we also, just so you know, because Pete and I have a meeting in a couple of weeks, so we have the opportunity to participate in the coastal resiliency thing the state is doing, or actually climate resiliency, we would probably kind of do coastal related things, but that has a grant program associated with it too. But fortunately on that program, we have help provided to us, and that's kind of the big benefit of that. Those folks can also help us with other grants, for example. One thing we might want to think about, especially if we identify some big grants, is, maybe, if there's a grant we really want to go after, for a lot of money for the stone here, maybe we should think about some grant writing services. And maybe we should put out an RFP at some point for, for qualified people that we shortlist on, we've done that before for engineers and other things. And so we have them available if we get, because there are some big infrastructure grants coming down, and it might be something we want to jump on. And so, you know, some of these programs provide help, like broadband, they got a lot of help now, this too, but, you know, if we have to jump on a DOT grant, we're on our own unless we hire somebody. So that's how I would suggest we consider putting out an RFP for, you know, grant assistance, but that's really not for a specific project, it's just a short list of a few people that are willing to do that. There's a bunch of people out there. Keep that in our back pocket, and then I think we can just keep communicating about grants, but I also think we should communicate to the community about, you know, maybe even in the calendar, about the fact that, you know, we got the Ship and Harbor grant, we'll probably get a coastal resiliency grant. I mean, let people know that we're saving them tax money. And, you know, I think it's great you guys, you know, got that grant.
Yeah.
50 grand.
I agree with Carol. I think considering some professional grant writing assistance is probably going to, if we are able to secure anybody and go after something with a proper design and a proposal, I think it's probably money well spent. I don't know how much is in the grant writing fund. I can't quote that tonight. There's not a lot in there.
But I think.
We do have a fund.
And I think it has to be a specific grant, like, we don't want to just have somebody on board to look for grants for us. That's
No.
not what I'm suggesting. I'm
That's right.
suggesting we're going after this grant, maybe we put together pieces against it. Because it is hard to do.
That is where my suggestion came from, in the context of a flurry of activity that happened earlier this year, in which there was congressional money being written about in the paper, and what do they call the carve-outs, not carve-outs.
Earmarks.
Earmarks, yes, earmarks. And also coming from the standpoint that I actually took a class in grant writing when I was back in graduate school 20 years ago, and realized how hard it is. And what I kept thinking of during those meetings, which I made a suggestion, was we shouldn't dump it on these guys and assume they can just magically write this great. That there are nonprofits and professional consultants who can help us in a very targeted fashion. The last point that I was thinking about at that time was that CTC works with a great writing consultant. I have no idea who it is, but it wouldn't hurt to reach out to CTC and ask who they use. If that person is learning something about the community, then maybe they could help us on a targeted basis.
And I believe the school has one.
Oh, really? Okay.
So where do you want to go with this? We need a motion.
Do we need a motion?
I think if Vika reaches out to CTC to ask them who they're working with, reaches out to the school to ask them who they're working with, to reach out to nonprofits who might be able to offer assistance as well, so we begin building up a file.
Well, yeah, and I don't think, given that, I'm not sure we need an RFP, because it would be way better to have people that are familiar with the community. So if those, it would be good to find out who those people are, in case we need them.
So if we're all in agreement,
And we have almost 28,000 in for the
I think it's good for,
yeah.
you can do the snow mark for that.
We'll wait. I'm gonna do.
I've been on that committee for 30 years.
So you got what we're looking for?
I'm gonna start with Matt and the school and see where that takes me.
Yeah, and I don't think we have to go crazy.
Yeah.
It's just some help. And Vika, do you have an estimate? I'm just curious about how much time you spent on the Ship and Harbor grant.
I had a lot of help from Jason with it. So what I did is, well, I mean, it was, I put in quite a few hours, and he did as well, but I had taken an old one that Marjorie had done. Well, there we go, so thank you, I plugged in some new information and sent it to him, and then he reworded, you know, the fancy words and lingo, and sent it back to me, I signed, and so we kind of, so you did most of the work then.
Right, but so I think it is good you can use those as a template, but I think, you know, Vika's got a lot of irons in the fire, so if we can help to kind of limit her time, so that all you're doing is reading it and saying, yeah, this is
Signing
good.
it, and that's how, I mean, in the greater scheme of things, that's how because I had enough background information that I had to use. I would not comfortably try to write my own grant without telling about it. But yes, that's a good start. I'll contact those.
All right, well, let's wait for the other board members.
Can I ask this is just FYI, I'm seeking information. A huge, I don't know whether it was a propane tank arrived on the barge today. It was biggest thing I've ever seen. It was a cylinder sort of thing. It really didn't seem to have identifying information. And I would say, you know, it was, I think it was 30 feet long. You know anything about that? And it came,
Probably 1,000 gallon, LP tank.
you know, came off the barge late afternoon and pretty quickly came back down the road.
Oh, no, it's probably one of the big liquid paving trucks.
Oh, yeah. The paving.
They're having all that chip sealing done.
Yes, yeah,
That's what it was. It has liquid tar in it.
and they unloaded
Pour it
it.
down and rock go in, and seals the road. But empties pretty quickly.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, moving on, 22-068, to recap the June 29, 22 stonework meeting and take any necessary action. So,
I got an email from Jason from Wright Pierce saying that they will be working on the suggestions that were made by the members of the public, and also received a recap of the notes from the meeting from Carol. So tomorrow I'll upload that information as well as the video. And they're hoping that probably at this point, with it being, creeping into the second week of July, that maybe third week of July is when they'll bring back something to us, in which case we, in a small group like we have been meeting, will get together with them and see what that information is and provide any suggestions and recommendations. At that point, it will come to the Board of Selectmen. So fingers crossed, if all goes well, then maybe it will be that first meeting in August. And then at that point, it is really nearing the end of the scope of work that Wright Pierce was agreed upon to do. And the Selectmen will need to decide whether you want to move forward with this and take the necessary next steps, or determine what those next steps are, or to just at that point say, nope, we don't want to do this, let's, hire somebody else or pay more money to have other drawings drawn up.
So what I heard was we pretty much jumped the gun on this.
Well, we didn't jump the gun on it because we didn't know how the public was, had the public loved the plan, then we could have taken the action. So we were covering our bases.
So at this point, if there's no questions for big specific questions on anything that requested or something like that. Right. Yes, Bob.
Quickly, just to get, at least get to see from you here. Is there a specific contract with Right Pierce that outlines the scope of the work? Is it possible we could copy that?
Sure.
You can email me a copy.
Want me to email it to you too, or do you still want it? Okay.
Anything else there?
Well, I guess, is there a final report that's expected?
Yeah, so
And so what's the due date for that? About,
I would have to look at the contract, I'm not sure that there was a specific deadline they were supposed to meet, it was kind of phased of the work. But the completion of it is, you know, the agreed upon drawing of the stone pier.
And I guess I feel like I should ask, if we as a community, we should get sort of electronic deliverables of those drawings. So we should get like the CAD drawings.
And that's all, so they're going back and are tweaking it to whatever they need. And then once we need the other thing that we need now that Donna Damon is no longer, we need another select board member to join us for that. Once that small group is okay with it and it comes back to the selectmen, if the selectmen, you know, like everything, and then finalize it, they'll provide us all those final documents. For now, they're sharing just kind of the paper copies or electronic copies, but.
So they will share the data files, the results of the stability study, you know, the data, so that.
The stability study was a different contract.
So did
This was, we received that information. This was an extended agreement that was agreed upon.
All right, so I mean, I think it's just what I've been hearing, and I'm kind of just new to this, but it seems like, you know, we need to make sure we get the final reports, right? Yeah, and they've been delivering those.
What I'll do is I'll email, and I'm happy to do it to all of the selectmen, but I'll email Carol and Bob that first contract that was signed when Justin was still here, and then the document of the, that they provided us with the completion of that work, and then that updated contract where they added the facilitator and continued and described the different phases. I'll share that with you.
And can you just also include what the cost, you know, what the expenditures have been? Because I couldn't find it anywhere, and I assume it's coming out of what fund is coming out of?
Stone
capital? Stonewall.
Yeah, the capital reserve.
Yes, Bob. Just one quick point. Carol mentioned it. I'm not sure if it got through. For the purpose of long-term access to the actual data, if the files that they're sending to us are in PDF, that's great, but not sufficient. We need DWG files as well, so that we have access to the actual engineer, not just an image of the engineer.
Well, and I think they've been sending those a lot to me, and I've been taking the PDF one and putting them on the website.
Yeah, so if you're getting DWG files
They
too.
probably are. They send all kinds of different, Jason has been good at communicating with me and throwing all kinds of stuff at me. So I'm almost certain that he's probably sharing those documents already.
Great. So, is there anybody that's volunteered to be on that committee?
I'm happy to do it. If somebody wants to do it.
So be Carol will be on that committee. Who else is on that committee?
Jen and I.
Okay.
And it's been their team, so the process since I started, and I think Jen shortly after joined us, they would provide whatever the detail prior to the meeting, we would meet with them, throw out our criticism and input and what needs to be changed, or how can you, adjust it, or can you change this, and for the most part, they've done a really good job, I think, providing that feedback and then bringing to the public, so.
All right, so, sorry, Mark. So Carol and Bob, if you're looking for specific information, please get in touch with Peter Townsend. Mark?
I promise I'll be quick. I agree with Carol, though. In the end of the contract, in this phase with Wright Pierce, we should receive a design that is pretty much ready to roll for grant and putting out for RFP. I'm not saying the community is gonna wanna do it.
Yes.
I'm not saying the recommendation from this body will be to do
And
it.
that's the discussion I had with them when I dropped them off at the boat, is he said that this is the last step, and then after this will be based on what they were hired to do and the phases of the process and what was being provided.
Yeah.
That's kind of the last part of it.
And then, very quickly, this is our fault. I think at some point, we probably should consider thanking CB Mahar for their road design so far, realizing that we're still in negotiations with the golf course. But at some point, if we think we are getting close to even liking anything about the design for the stone wall facility, it needs to blend into an improvement to the work facility, and that same firm should have that.
And that's a
Two different
future agenda
firms.
item.
That's my opinion.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, all right. Moving on, communications. Anybody have any communications? Carol?
So before I became a selectman, I was pursuing the climate resiliency program with Zika. And we have a meeting on July 14th, I think, with the Island Institute representative. I'm just telling you this so you filled in. And we have an opportunity if you want to apply for a grant in September. So she's trying to get us positioned if we want to apply. So there's a series of grants, a lot of communities have already taken advantage of them. And, you know, there's a wide range of possibilities in terms of topics. So I'm just letting you know that. So the next step on that, so we do this thing called the resiliency checklist. I don't exactly know what's involved, but it's probably what our vulnerabilities are and help us prioritize, you know, climate change issues for our community. And then as a community, we kind of have to, you know, agree to participate in this climate resiliency program. Like most of it, frankly, most municipalities are in town. And so that we'll have to actually do as the select board, potentially at the next meeting. So not the 20th, but and I also just added, I won't be here on August 3rd. I just realized this because I'm coming back in Ireland. So I don't know what the policy is about missing meetings, but I can't be here.
Any other, is there anything, we picked that date, that we usually do first Monday,
First and fourth,
first and fourth? Is that
first and
holiday?
third, first and third.
First and
I
fourth?
don't think it's policy.
No, we can always change the date of the meeting. I wouldn't have a problem with that.
August 10th is the next Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer to be able to be there. I think it's important. if you
Plus
do
the
this
town
here.
clock.
Fine with that.
So in August 10th will be the one and only board of
Yeah.
selectmen meeting.
Yeah. Any other communications? Yes.
I had a community member ask me about what the process is if they have a culvert at the end of their driveway that's deteriorated. What is the process as far as do they come to the town and ask for a replacement? Do they make it aware with all the paving and everything going on? Yeah, what does that work? How does that work?
To my knowledge, and I'm still learning about all this, the town will and has replaced a culvert for individuals when they're on, off of the town property. So, we have one that is gonna be getting replaced on, South Road that, you know, is off of, right on parallel to the town road. I had a conversation with Chuck about it where he said that if it's a new property going in, and they're putting in a driveway, they will put that initial one in, but they can't, you know, ask for a couple of them. And so if it's off of town, road, then it would be as simple as contacting me. I let the, public works know, and then they put it on their agenda to do that. So they have two that are lined up right now.
So just to add to that, as far as I remember, the town will provide one access to your driveway. not multiple. If you have, to do multiple ones, the town has to go to you, make sure you've done. all. So, if it's failed, typically the town should replace the one. Basically, it's affecting the water flow in that road, so. That's all. Any other communications? I had a couple, one was, a community member, the road got paved last year, the year before, for chip seal. And, the paving company does a little apron. But past the apron, they don't do anything. So it's a drop off, and the water coming off the road was accelerating that deterioration. So he asked me where does the town responsibility and where does his start? It's a simple question. So I asked Vika about that, and she said, basically, if it's within the town road measurement, the town should be responsible. And I know the town's been busy and stuff, and I've seen it before where they've gone and where it's been a drop off, a couple of inches, 2-3 inches. They do a little bit of gravel there just to make that transition. So I don't know. I think we just need to be more aware of it and make sure that the town follows up on it, especially when it's new pavement. If it was done at the time of the paving and then it's just washed away, I say it's to the property owner at that point. But the initial transition, I think, needs to be done by the town. So I just didn't know if you guys wanted to make some kind of decision or talk about it or thoughts.
I think it's under the purview of the road commissioner, and I think if it's reasonably within the setbacks of the broad width of that road, then the town takes care of it.
I agree.
And our comprehensive plan environment has a very long list of all the town roads and exactly to the feet, how much we own and how wide they are. And Google Earth is extremely accurate if you ever wanted to measure those roads yourself.
Yeah, some people aren't interested in that.
Comprehensive
It's out of,
plan,
it's out of date.
I think she's talking about all the town roads, the actual, like,
But I mean-
Bennett Cove Road is like 50 feet wide.
But I mean, in terms of the road plan we started with, we've almost accomplished the whole road plan, right?
The pavement part, yes.
So
We're
that's
getting
good.
close. Getting close.
So I also got communications from Senator Green's office requesting some time in the meeting. You know, if you guys are interested,
Kathy Breen,
I believe so.
Come on here.
Yeah,
to be right.
sometime. I don't know.
She's done as a legislator, right?
Yes, yeah. He just wants to talk about the legislation that passed or something.
Yeah.
I don't know the whole details, but, so if you guys are interested.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell her the planning board is interested in this, you know, what is it called? 30, what is that?
LD 2003.
LD 20, oh my God. So that's the accessory dwelling,
Well, that's a small part of LD 2003.
right? But that particular legislation, which changes land use.
That's the one you were talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah, I spoke with her about it, she doesn't know anything about it.
doesn't know anything.
But effective,
So what would,
You want to forward me that communication, I'll in touch with her, tell her August meeting and our September ones and see what works best for her.
sounds good. Any other, yes,
I sent a communication, I sent it to Vika and you, I think. After the last meeting, the discussion about burning at the construction site, raised my level of concern. Did I, do you remember because I sent it to you? I sent a copy to, I sent the primary email to Jim Butler. So reply. There haven't been, to my knowledge, any subsequent burning, but it appears quite clear that they plan to, a big pile. And should I continue to pursue that with Jim?
I did talk to him about that and asked him with the email that you, emailed me, now that you say that, and he, the conversation, that I had with him is, he had spoken to, I'm assuming you're talking about the Alex, the building that Alex is working on. He had spoken with him, they had gone through the proper procedures to separate what could and couldn't be burned, and then they had taken out all the required permits. And so for them to burn that from his requirement was no different than somebody having a really large brush fire. So that was the extent of what I received from that.
Separate but related, I had a conversation with Kim, who issues permits on the island. And to my surprise, construction,
Who?
Kim Monroe.
Oh, Kim, yes.
Burn piles of lumber are legal according to our burn permits, and also legal according to the state environment. So they are with the proper permit. They are. I don't like it. But they are.
So am I concluding correctly that the toxic sources of toxic materials went into the dumpster?
The plan is to do that, yeah. Yeah, and the ashes also, he wants ashes in the dumpster also.
Pardon?
Like the roofing and all that, yes, all in the dumpster. And then he wants the ashes in the dumpster too. Full hands and everything. So he's not, he's not trying to poison anything, so he's trying to do it right.
Could be a big fire.
All right, any other communications? All right, moving on to approved minutes from June 15, 2022.
So moved.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor? All right, items to be placed on the future agenda. So the Senator Green, and climate resilience grants.
Yeah, we gotta do this climate resilience declaration or something. I'll get you the exact language.
So do you think you'd have that done for the August meeting, or?
We would have to do that step in August, yeah.
So it would be kind of.
Well, she's gonna be at the meeting. So
Oh, okay, so either we'll have something in August or something. Bob?
I would like to add to some future meeting, discussion by the board, very preliminary discussion on the potential for the use of some town-owned lands for the purposes of affordable housing. Take some of the grant money that is out there from the housing. We have a couple of projects we're working on now, one for private land and one for land that the town gave to Seeker, the town gave to Seeker 12 years ago, 14 years ago. And we looked at the suggestion of Donna a while ago, a couple of different parcels that turned out to not be buildable. There are other town parcels that could be considered. I'm not proposing that we vote on it at the first meeting, second town meeting vote, but then maybe get the conversation started and see where the board is.
we should have, something about the stone wall, where we stand there. That should go on there.
Yep.
And you should also discuss, because by then we will have had a workshop and where that should go.
That's a lot. Yeah. I had something that,
Chandler's will probably shirt that one.
yeah. And then, grant writing. If we have any,
Yeah, that would probably maybe be in the TA report.
yeah. All right. Any other future agendas? Their motion to go into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056A personnel and to take any resulting action, and 1 MRSA 4056C acquisitions of real property and take any resulting action. Bill?
So,
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor? Adjourned.